Chapter 717 Capital Examination. Finally, it was the Empress ceremony. Sun Miaoka became the Empress, and Gu Wanning received the title of Consort Xian. Needless to say, after the two of them dressed up, they looked much more dignified and beautiful. Perhaps because she was tired, Sun Miaoka's delivery came early, and she gave birth to a daughter that night. The next day, Zhouing was stunned when she received the news. Sun Miaoka was only 8 months pregnant. A premature birth. Thinking of this, she glanced into the palace. The child was a little thin and weak, and Sun Miaoka had obviously suffered a lot as well. Her small face had turned green. Fortunately, the mother and daughter were safe, and Zhouing retreated. During breakfast, Zhouing saw Gu Chengrui smiling from ear to ear. She asked, "What's up? What's the good news?" Gu Chengrui then told her about the emperor's decision. 12 days later, all the officials in the Ming dynasty would have to pay their respects to the Mother God. He said, "This time, Mother God is completely established in the country. It'll be difficult to forget her in the future." Zhouing was not very happy after hearing that, as she would have to give the new emperor a gift. "What do you think I should give him?" Zhouing asked. Gu Chengrui paused when he heard that. It was obvious that he had never thought that she would return the gift. That's right. The new emperor had ascended the throne and brought so many people to pay their respects to her. She had to show her gratitude. After pondering for a moment, he replied, "Why don't you give corn seeds to the north and rice seeds to the south? If we solve the food shortage as soon as possible, people will believe in Mother God more." "That's a decent idea, but if I give out seeds, your position as the agriculture minister won't be of much use." "It's okay. I didn't want to be an official in the first place," Gu Chengrui said. "All right, then it's settled." As the capital examination was the next day, Zhouing did not go out again. Instead, she prepared some food for Gu Chenglin. She prepared meat pies, instant noodles, steamed buns, and braised eggs. After cooking them, she froze them and gave them to Gu Chenglin, telling him how to cook and eat them later. "Thank you so much, sister-in-law. With these things, I don't have to eat only steamed buns anymore." Gu Chenglin took it and smiled. "It's good that you like it. When you leave, bring a few pears with you in case you get heaty." "All right, they'll do that." Gu Chenglin nodded. When he was about to head off to the examination hall the next day, Gu Chengrui personally sent him off and checked whether he had the necessary items, such as brushes, ink, papers, and inkstones. When they arrived at the entrance of the examination hall, Gu Chengrui saw his nervous expression and patted his head with a smile. "You're already good for your young age. How old are you? If you can't get in, just take the exam 3 years later. Don't take it too seriously. Remember, don't bother about anyone else after you enter. Don't be in a hurry, and calm down first. Wait until you've completely calmed down before you answer the questions." Gu Chenglin looked up at him. "I'll try my best. You can go back. I'll go in now." "Go ahead." Gu Chengrui smiled and waved at him. After watching Gu Chenglin pass the inspection, he turned around and walked back. Over the next 3 days, the husband and wife went to their 2 newly bought manors. After making arrangements for them, they immediately rushed back. Just as they reached the entrance of the examination hall, the examination had completely ended. Gu Chengrui immediately got out of the carriage and walked over. After a while, Gu Chenglin walked out with his head down. Gu Chengrui smiled. "Not bad. You didn't lose weight. You're in good shape. Cousin, why don't you ask me how I did? No matter how the exam went, it's already a foregone conclusion. Why don't we have a good meal and have a good sleep at night? Then, we can happily wait for the results. Didn't I say it before? You're still young, so you don't have to hurry," Gu Chengrui said. Chapter 718 Continue to maintain. "Okay, then I want to eat prawns tonight." Gu Chenglin nodded. "All right, let's go to a restaurant to eat that today." After Gu Chengrui finished speaking, he brought him into the carriage. They rushed to their restaurant together. Niu Fugui saw them coming over and immediately went up to them. "Master, you're here. Please come in. Is there a private room?" "No, but the lounge is available. Why don't you guys eat there?" "All right, it's just a meal. It's the same anywhere." Zhouing agreed, and they followed him to the back. When they arrived at the lounge, Zhouing ordered a serving of braised pork intestine, shredded yam, and stir-fried coal. These 3 dishes looked simple, but they tested the chef's skills the most. She could test if their skills had regressed. Uncle Nyo, let's eat together. Thank you, mistress, but maybe another day. I can't leave the outside unattended. After Nyo Fuguei finished speaking, he took the menu and turned around to leave. Cousin sister-in-law, is this braised pork intestine? Gu Chenglin asked. Yeah, it's braised in its juices. Would anyone eat it at this prominent restaurant? You'll know when you taste it. Only after you try it yourself can you know how it tastes. Don't listen to rumors. Zhouing smiled. Indeed, only you know if the shoes fit. Don't listen to others. Gu Chengrui echoed. This dish was his favorite. Unfortunately, Zhouing didn't cook it as often now, so he had to eat more later. Okay. Gu Chenglin nodded and did not say anything else. He washed his hands and took a piece of snack to eat. Soon, the dishes were served, and the first dish was the braised pork intestine. Zhouing looked at the red and translucent large intestine and nodded in satisfaction. Then, she called out, "Grab the chopsticks. Let's have a taste." After saying that, she picked up a piece for herself and tasted it. The taste is authentic. It's just that the heat is a little lacking and a little chewy. Gu Chenglin looked at her as if she was enjoying the delicacy. He also picked up a piece and put it in his mouth. After a moment, he smiled and nodded. It has all 5 flavors: sour, sweet, fragrant, spicy, and salty. It's fat but not greasy. It's soft, sticky, and fresh. It's unexpectedly delicious. That's true. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need for the many steps to cook this dish. If you like it, you can eat more. It won't taste good if it gets cold. As soon as she finished speaking, Shizhu and Lin Tian did not stand on ceremony anymore. Zhouing tried the other dishes. Every dish was not bad, which meant their cooking did not slack off because she was busy. As for the braised pork intestine's minor flaws, she didn't pursue them. After all, if it were softened at the beginning, it wouldn't be able to hold its shape after some time. When they were done with their meal, Nyo Fuguei sent them out personally. Master, mistress, how was your meal? If you have any suggestions, please let me know. They'll pass them on to them. It's good. Just continue to maintain it. Gu Chengrui said. As long as you're satisfied. Nyo Fuguei smiled. After getting on the carriage, Zhouing turned around and glanced at Nyo Fuguei. She turned to Gu Chengrui and asked, "By the way, do you have any progress on recruiting a new restaurant manager? I've tried too, but they're not ideal. The capital just sold a large number of political slaves to the outside. It won't be easy to find anyone suitable in a short period of time. If it doesn't work out, they'll recruit while I hold the position." Zhouing nodded and did not refute. After all, this was the capital. It was inappropriate for her to take charge. Chapter 719 Opening Ceremony 1 Next. Zhouing continued to try to recruit a manager, but there was still no suitable candidate. She could only let Gu Chengrui take over for the time being. She planned to send Yo Deli over. With a bookkeeper, Gu Chengrui would not have to keep an eye on the restaurant all day. On the opening day, Zhouing was worried about Qi Lin, so she rushed over early in the morning. When she arrived at the kitchen was already bustling with activity, especially the helpers who were preparing the vegetables and noodles. "Mistress?" Qi Lin saw her enter and was surprised. "Mistress, why are you here?" he asked. "It's opening day, and I'm sure there are many things to do. I was afraid that you guys wouldn't be able to handle it, so I came to take a look. How's the preparation going?" Zhouing asked. "Have you prepared all the ingredients for the dishes?" "Don't worry, I've already checked. Everything is ready." "That's good. You do your thing. We'll just walk around." "All right, if there's anything you need, just tell me." Qi Lin gave some instructions to the helpers before turning around to prepare the main dishes. Zhouing nodded her head in satisfaction when she saw that he was giving a proper command. She carefully checked the ingredients, especially the meat. After confirming that they were fresh and healthy, she returned to the front. "How's it going?" she asked Gu Chengrui as he finished teaching the waiters. "Not great. There are so many things to do, and I'm afraid of making mistakes." Gu Chungrui shook his head. Previously, he had only studied science and technology and had never managed a business. For a moment, he was uncertain of his capabilities. He said, "Let's go. Let's walk around and see if there's anything that needs to be fixed. We still have time to clean up." "No need. I just came over from the kitchen. As for the front, it's fine as long as it's clean and tidy. The rest can only be improvised." After Zhouing finished speaking, she continued to check the place for peace of mind. Needless to say, the previous manager was really good at disciplining his workers. There were no mistakes in every detail. Even the waiters looked clean and neat. Coupled with the red work clothes and hat that she had specially designed, it was festive and eye-catching. "Congratulations, congratulations. I didn't expect you and your wife to be here today." Zhou Huiming came in and cupped his fists. "Thank you. You're not busy today." Gu Chungrui stepped forward and replied, "What? How can I not be busy? I have to go back after coming over to congratulate you. But let's make a deal. Leave some for me tonight." Zhou Huiming laughed. "It's just a small token of my appreciation. I hope you won't dislike it." Zhou Huiming pointed at a gift box in the hands of the servant behind him. "What are you talking about? I'm already grateful that you rushed over to congratulate us. Is there anything you want to eat tonight?" Gu Chungrui asked. "Yes, I haven't had hot pot in a long time. Let's have that tonight. However, I've been heaty recently, so we'll just have the sour soup and mushroom soup." "Sure, they'll definitely keep a portion for you. See you tonight." Gu Chungrui exchanged a few more polite words before Zhou Huiming turned around and left in a hurry. After he left, Mrs. Yao and Mrs. Liu rushed over and left after giving their gifts. Then came people from King Xian's residence, King An's residence, and some other officials. However, all of them were women. Zhouing let them into a private room and made chrysanthemum tea and rose tea to entertain everyone. After sitting down, Zhouing received everyone's blessings. She said a few polite words and left, leaving Shi Zhu to entertain them. As soon as Zhouing left, Consort Xian asked curiously, "Mrs. Sun, I heard that you went to the palace to see the little princess 2 days ago. How does she look? Who does she look like?" When the women heard this, they immediately turned to look at Mrs. Sunday. They asked at once, "That's right, Madam Sunday. What does the little princess look like? Tell us about it." Chapter 720 Opening Ceremony 2. The baby is still young, so I can't tell at the moment. However, his eyebrows are very similar to the emperor's, especially his phoenix eyes. He's practically carved from the same mold as the emperor. Mrs. Sun said with a smile. "She has red phoenix eyes? That's great. How is the empress now? How is her recovery?" "Not bad. She's doing well in her recovery. We have to get the phoenix seal back as soon as possible. I heard that the phoenix seal is still in Consort Xian's hands, and it will be hard to say if it's still there after some time." At this moment, the newly appointed Minister of War, the wife of Lord Chu, spoke. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone turned to look at her. Some were surprised, some were sneering, some were suspicious, and some harbored ill intentions. With the Empress Dowager watching, it's inappropriate for us to interfere in this matter. Mrs. Sun said it with a smile. But this time, her smile did not reach her eyes. She wasn't sure if she was fearless or trying to sow discord. However, if Consort Xian heard this in the Gu family's territory, it would be troublesome if she and her daughter became estranged. If these words reached the emperor's ears, what would he think of their Sun family? The initially cheerful atmosphere was no longer there because of her words. Mrs. Chu seemed to have realized something and immediately shut her mouth. "Sister-in-law, has Mingyu's marriage been decided?" Consort Xian asked. "How can it be? She didn't even nod after getting so many introductions. How's your son's marriage going? Has it been settled?" "No. He said he would look for a bride himself. I couldn't be bothered to ask more. If I find an unsuitable one for him, he will turn around and blame me." "That's true. Marriage is an important matter of a lifetime. You can't force it." The two of them were talking about their children's marriages. When the awkward atmosphere passed, everyone immediately surrounded Mrs. Sun again. Shi Zhu was speechless by this group of aunties. In the blink of an eye, it was noon. With the sound of firecrackers, Zhouing asked someone to scatter some candy among the crowd. After that, Gu Chungrui released the news of a 30% discount for the restaurant's opening. Very soon, the entire restaurant became lively. When Zhouing saw this, she greeted Gu Chungrui and went up to entertain the ladies. After sending off the madams, Mingyu suddenly jumped out from the side and said, "Sister Zhou, congratulations. You little girl, did you come over so late just to hide from the ladies?" Zhouing turned her head and smiled. "You really guessed it. If I came with my mother, I would definitely be annoyed to death today." After Mingyu finished speaking, she went back to the restaurant with her. When she went upstairs, she realized the private rooms were all booked. "Sister Zhou, your business is really good, isn't it?" Mingyu asked in surprise. "A lot of people are here for the 30% discount. There shouldn't be so many people tomorrow. Let's go. We'll bring you to the back for a meal. I'm hungry, too." After Zhouing finished speaking, she called Shizhu and walked to the back. At night, the people who needed to be entertained were all officials, so it was mainly Gu Chungrui who came forward to entertain them. Zhouing went to the kitchen because it was too busy. After sending everyone away that night, Zhouing and Gu Chungrui finally heaved a sigh of relief. She asked the kitchen to cook the remaining ingredients, and everyone ate together. Zhouing looked at the staff, stood up, and smiled. "Thank you for everyone's hard work today. We've also gotten off to a good start. So I've decided to triple your daily salary today. Everyone, hurry up and clean the place up. Go back to sleep early. We still have a busy day tomorrow." Chapter 721 Worship. When everyone heard that they would get 3 times the daily salary, even though it was only for today, they were all energized. After getting up and thanking Zhouing, they immediately got busy. "How's your income today?" Gu Chungrui turned to Niu Deli and asked. "Master, I haven't calculated the details yet. However, other than those to whom we gave gifts, we didn't lose anything today." Niu Deli said, "It's fine as long as the bill is well kept. Let's calculate in detail tomorrow. I'm going home to sleep." Gu Chungrui got up and yawned after he finished speaking. "Let's go back." Zhouing stood up and said. After the couple returned home, they washed up briefly and entered the interspace to feed the livestock. The two of them couldn't be bothered with anything else after that. They took a shower and went to sleep. 3 days later, the restaurant's business finally stabilized, and Gu Chungrui also found a suitable manager through Qian He. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed, and it was time for everyone to worship Mother God. After breakfast, Gu Chungrui brought Lin Yitian to gather at the palace entrance. Zhouing walked Erzhuang around the yard for a while. When it was about time, she closed the door and went back to her room to rest, saying that she was tired. After ensuring no one followed her, she entered her interspace and looked around the country through the various Mother God temples. As expected, there were many people gathered in every corner of the country. Moreover, there was a sea of people, making her feel a small wave of panic. When the time came, the highest-ranking officials led everyone to burn incense and pay their respects. After the ceremony ended, Zhouing transmitted a message through the statue of the Mother God. "Congratulations to the new emperor for ascending to the throne. I have specially given you a number of corn seeds and rice seeds. May the world be peaceful, where people can live and work in peace and contentment." After saying that, she distributed the seeds that she had prepared earlier. She also distributed a printed flyer that taught the planting techniques. What she didn't know was that when she spoke through all the Mother God temples at the same time, she formed a resonance. Therefore, in the entire Ming dynasty, as long as anyone wasn't too far away, everyone could hear it. Even those who were not present immediately kneeled down in the direction of the Mother God temple. The people outside the Mother God temple were filled with reverence as they looked at the grain seeds falling from the sky. Because this was not something that humans could do, all of them became even more devout than ever. Zhouing felt a pure, endless power of faith surge toward her body. Zhouing immediately started to absorb the energy. After everything was finished, the retired emperor looked at the emperor and said, "Since you've received Mother God's approval, don't disappoint her. Spread the new seeds widely and work hard to ensure everyone can access food and warm clothing. Yes, father, I will do my best. The emperor nodded seriously. Then, he went forward to check the seeds. He looked at the plump corn seeds and smiled. I'm sure the yield of this corn won't be small. Emperor, there are records of planting techniques given by Mother God. It says that in a good year, an acre can yield about 1,000 pounds. Gu Chungrui walked over with the printed paper. What about rice? The emperor asked excitedly. If that was the case, 1 acre of land could support 2 people. It wouldn't be 2 acres of land supporting 1 person, as it is now. There's no mention of rice here. After Gu Chungrui finished speaking, he even let him take a glance. After the emperor finished reading, he immediately got someone to check and found that it was all corn. Then, he tugged at his ears. I didn't hear wrongly, right? Mother God said that there are rice seeds. Chapter 722 Great Benefits Emperor. Don't forget that the Ming dynasty is worshipping Mother God today. The south is the main production area for rice. I suspect Mother God has sent the rice seeds to the south. Gu Chungrui replied. After the emperor heard this, he thoughtfully took the printed paper and looked at it carefully. He focused on the environment where the corn grew. As expected, they grew better on dry or mountainous land, which was more suitable for the north. He instantly felt a little relieved. Following that, King Xian's son, King En's son, and a few young members of the royal family were sent out to check the seeds along the way and distribute them to the people. After everyone received their orders, they went home first and set off with their money and manpower. The emperor and the others returned to the palace. At night, Gu Chungrui returned home and saw that Zhouing was obviously different. He circled her and asked, "What happened? Did you take some miraculous medicine? Do you have some?" Zhouing asked, "I've benefited greatly today. My divine sense can now cover the entire capital." Gu Chungrui nodded in understanding. At that time, the scene of the seed falling from the sky shocked him, let alone others. It was difficult not to be devout to Mother God. He kissed her on the forehead and said, "Congratulations." Same. Zhouing smiled. 7 days later, King Xian's son sent back a letter. As expected, when they reached the main rice production area, the seeds distributed by Mother God were all rice seeds. After the emperor finished reading the letter, he let out a sigh of relief. He then informed the retired emperor and went to see his daughter. "Consort Xian, you're here too?" he asked, surprised when he heard the bell-like laughter. Sun Miaoka and Gu Wanning immediately stood up and bowed when they heard his voice. "It's fine. What were you two talking about just now? You two were so happy." The emperor waved his hand to stop their bowing, walked to the small bed, and looked at his daughter. Seeing that she was still asleep, he sat back down. However, Sun Miaoka and Gu Wanning just looked at each other. It was evident that they did not intend to continue the topic. Instead, they took out a tiny dress and said, "Your Majesty, look at this small dress. It looks good." The emperor looked at the clothes that were not much bigger than his palm, stunned. "Nice. Is this the little princess clothes?" "That's right. Consort Xian gave it to me. Isn't it cute? There are so many butterflies embroidered on it. It is so thoughtful." Sun Miaoka smiled. "Indeed, but why is this butterfly so fat? I learned this from my cousin-in-law. She said that it's an exaggerated embroidery technique that is suitable for children." Gu Wanning replied, "Indeed, it looks much cuter." The emperor nodded in agreement. After that, the three of them chatted for a while. When Sun Miaoka was tired, the emperor and Gu Wanning took their leave. "Wait for me tonight," the emperor said as he tidied Gu Wanning's hair. Gu Wanning was surprised and nodded with a red face. "Do you want me to cook for you personally?" "No need. We'll go over after dinner." Chunxia will take her leave. Gu Wanning bowed and turned around to return to her palace. Eunuch Qian looked at Consort Xian's back and said, "You Majesty, you're sure blessed. The Empress and Consort Xian are so united. It's really rare." "It's indeed rare." The emperor nodded in agreement. However, the imperial palace was like a dye vat of sins. He did not know if they could continue to be so united. Also, although he was satisfied with this state, He felt something was missing when he was with them. As for what it was, he couldn't say for sure. He just hoped that this balance would always be maintained. Chapter 7, 23-month-old birthday 1. Soon. The results of the capital examination were out. Although Gu Chenglin was a scholar, his ranking was on the lower end. Gu Chengrue, who had accompanied him through the rankings, saw him drooping his little head and looking unhappy. He rubbed his head and said, "All right, your results are already quite good now. It's best if you take part in the provincial examination 6 years later. Who knows, you might even be able to pass the examination in one fell swoop." "I know, cousin. I was too anxious. Haste makes waste. Take it slow. It'll get better." At the same time, in Shanghe village, Gu Chengxi also received good news. He was also a lower-ranking scholar. However, he was overjoyed. Of course, the happiest one was Mrs. Sunday. Her son had an official position, and in the future, the status of the mother and son in the residence would be higher. The peaceful days passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the little princess' 1-month-old birthday. Early in the morning, Zhouing put on a pair of small gold bracelets that she had prepared. She also brought a pound of tremella and 2 pounds of pound cake made by Gu Chengrue. There were black sesame seeds, red dates, wolfberries, walnuts, and other nuts in it, which were beneficial for Sun Miaoka. Finally, there was a 3-layered cake that Gu Chengrue was carrying. After they were ready, the two of them sat in a carriage and entered the palace. Gu Chengrue went straight to the emperor, and after Zhouing learned that the Empress Dowager was with the Empress, she went straight to Phoenix Palace with Shizhu. After entering the house, she realized that not only was the Empress Dowager there, but Gu Wanning too. After greeting her, she gave the gift to Qing Tao and said, "This is the biggest box. It contains a cake. It's a birthday present specially prepared for the little princess. It's better if it's placed in an open place. If it's crushed, it won't look good." "Cake? What is it? Is it a snack made of eggs?" the Empress Dowager asked curiously. "It's almost the same. It's made of eggs and flour. It's equivalent to longevity peaches. However, the little princess is still young, so we changed it into a cake. It's also a little token of my appreciation." "You're so thoughtful." The Empress Dowager smiled and nodded. Then, she asked, "I heard that the business of your new restaurant is doing well. Do you have any new dishes?" "It's still the same as the original restaurant, with the taste a little spicy." "That's pretty good. It will warm us in the middle of winter," the retired emperor said. As soon as he finished speaking, elder consort Un and the rest of the imperial family walked in. "How have you been in the palace recently?" Zhouing asked Gu Wanning after exchanging a few polite words with everyone. "Pretty good. How about you guys?" "We are now considered to be in favor by the emperor, so our lives are quite smooth." "Oh, by the way, did you know that Chunkin became a scholar?" Zhouing asked. "I know. The moment the results came out, the emperor told me personally." "It seems that the emperor treats you well." "It's all right." Gu Wanning was a little embarrassed. "What's wrong?" Zhouing asked curiously. "What happened?" "It's nothing much. It's just that the ministers are urging the emperor to choose another concubine. I'm afraid that the inner palace won't be peaceful in the future." The emperor agreed. "Not yet, but we can't drag this out. The emperor can't always have only the two of us." Zhouing was speechless for a moment after hearing this. It was useless for anyone to decide, as it was mainly up to the emperor himself. "Then why don't you take advantage of the opportunity to spend more time with the emperor and leave a deep impression on him?" "A deep impression?" Gu Wanning asked thoughtfully. Chapter 7, 24-month-old birthday 2. Just like flowers, there are thousands of flowers worldwide, but each has its own characteristics. Just like the graceful and luxurious peony, the fragrance of jasmine, the charm of peony, and so on. As long as you are unique, the emperor will never forget you. But I must remind you, if you want to fight for attention, don't take the initiative to provoke others, but work hard on the emperor. As long as you are in his heart, nothing else is important. He'll remember it. Also, you have to take the initiative to greet, act coquettishly, be jealous, and so on. Let him feel that you care about him, like him, and need him. Otherwise, so what if you're a strong woman? When he forgets you, you'll be nothing. Was my cousin charmed by you like this? Our situation is different. We've been through a lot together, and now we're more like family who can't leave each other. What are you guys whispering about here? Mingyu walked over and patted their shoulders. You scared us to death. Can't you greet us properly? Gu Wanning said. You look happy? Zhouing raised her head and asked, Is your marriage settled? You're so annoying. You only know how to stab me in the heart. When Mingyu said this, she looked at Gu Wanning. By the way, where's the Empress and the little princess? They're the main characters today. Why haven't they shown up yet? I heard that the little princess was crying in the morning, and the Empress coaxed her to sleep. I see. After Mingyu finished speaking, she squeezed between them and started chatting with them. Zhouing soon discovered that, other than her family and the Sun family, the rest were all members of the royal family. It seemed that this was only a small-scale, 1-month-old birthday banquet. Soon, Sun Miaoka walked out. After exchanging pleasantries with everyone, they sat down and started chatting. When everyone found out that the little princess had fallen asleep, their voices immediately became softer. In the royal study, the emperor saw Gu Chungrui come in and asked, Chungrui, have all the corn seeds been distributed? Yes, the officials and the wealthy families were given 100 acres of seeds each. The commoners were distributed according to the population. Every 2 people would get 1 acre worth of corn seeds. This way, every family can plant them. Very good. Officials and wealthy families mainly grow rice and wheat anyway, especially the new type of wheat seeds. The worst condition land could already produce 500 pounds per acre. In my opinion, the food problem in the country will be completely solved by next year. The emperor smiled. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Haha, it's mainly due to Mother God's credit. Oh right, there's also yours. If it weren't for the sweet potato as a foundation, the country wouldn't have recovered so quickly. The provincial examination is coming soon. Do you want to participate? The emperor asked. Gu Chungrui shook his head and said, No, I'm not interested in being an official. I can't deal with all these schemes. It's good to be a doctor and do some business. The emperor saw the determination in his eyes and knew that he was not trying to shirk. He immediately felt that it was a pity. Because Gu Chungrui was an intelligent, honest, and sincere person, it was convenient and reassuring to use him. You'll always be in charge of agriculture. I hope you can make some contributions here. Is it still the same as before? Do I get to skip court? Yes, they'll send someone to inform you only when I need you. Also, if you need me, you can just enter the palace to look for me. At other times, you're free to do whatever. The emperor replied unhappily. Thank you for your understanding, Emperor. Gu Chungrui smiled. How is it? I told you that he wouldn't participate in the provincial examination, and he doesn't like being an official, Zhou Huaiming said as he walked out of the side hall. Chapter 725-Month-Old Birthday 3. Are you betting on me? Gu Chungrui glanced at the two of them and said angrily, You can say so. I want 100 taels of silver, and ill-treat you to some fish pot later. I've been thinking about it for 5 years. I heard it reopened recently, so I'll take you there to try it. Is it really that delicious? Of course, it's all sea fish that is fresh. I guarantee that you'll want to eat it again after eating it once. You're such a foodie. The emperor looked at Zhou Huaiming in annoyance. Who doesn't like to eat delicious food? Zhou Huaiming replied righteously. It's getting late. Let's go and see the little princess. We haven't seen her since she was born. Speaking of children, you're not young anymore. Shouldn't you get married? Marry. They'll marry when I find someone suitable. I'm serious. I'm not joking either. All right, they'll give you a good room for a year. If you're still single after a year, don't blame me for bestowing you with a marriage. Wait, When Zhou Huaiming said this, he saw the sinister look in the emperor's eyes and said with grievance, All right, 1 year. After saying that, the three followed eunuch Qian to the Phoenix Palace. When everyone saw them enter, they immediately stood up and bowed to the emperor. Then, Zhou Huaiming and Gu Chungrui bowed to the Empress Dowager and the Empress. Seeing that the little princess was lying in the cradle and blowing bubbles, The emperor brought Zhou Huaiming and Gu Chengrui over. Why is the little princess skin so red? Zhou Huaiming asked in surprise. You don't understand, right? Red means that the child's skin is fair and thin. If it's fair and tender now, it'll get darker and darker when she grows older, Gu Chengrui said. There's such a thing? Zhou Huaiming asked curiously. That's true. Children who have red skin will turn fair when they grow up. The Empress Dowager echoed. By the way, Emperor, where are your other uncles and brothers? Why are only the three of you here? They're at my father's place. They'll probably come over when it's mealtime. The Emperor said. All right. The Empress Dowager nodded. Zhou Ying noticed that Mingyu was staring at Zhou Huaiming. She turned her arm and whispered, How is it? Brother Zhou isn't bad-looking, right? After being exposed, Mingyu blushed. Don't spout nonsense. I just didn't expect him to not know about children's red skin. Stubborn. Go back and think about it. He's not young anymore. It'll be too late to regret it if you miss it. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she did not say anything else. After chatting for a while, the emperor brought Zhou Huaiming and Gu Chengrui to the east wing of the courtyard. Soon, it was noon. After setting the table, the empress asked Qing Tao to bring out the cake. This is the cake that Mrs. Gu made for the little princess. Everyone, take a look and try it. Cake? What is it? Old consortant asked. The Empress Dowager hurriedly explained it to everyone. Everyone immediately gathered around curiously. When Qing Tao saw this, she immediately asked someone to bring the cake over. When Qing Tao took off the cover, everyone's eyes lit up. One was the cream-framed pattern on the cake, and the other was the fruit cubes soaked in honey. The red, yellow, and green looked very beautiful. These are all fruits? Old consort and looked at Zhou Ying in surprise. Yes, the red ones are cherries, the yellow ones are oranges, and the green ones are dates soaked in honey. No wonder it was preserved so well. Chapter 7 26-month-old birthday 4. I think the most beautiful is the dancing little person figure at the top. She looks like a little princess. After Consort Xian finished speaking, she leaned over and took a serious look. I didn't see it wrongly. It's indeed a small figure. That's a sugar figurine. Zhou Ying smiled. It's really too beautiful. I can't bear to eat it. The Empress exclaimed in amazement. Indeed, I've really troubled Mrs. Gu. Mrs. Sun said, As long as you're happy, and it's made for us to eat. The little princess can't eat it, so the Empress can do it for her. I should. The Empress agreed and asked Qing Tao to call the Emperor and the others over to broaden their horizons. It was a good time to share a piece and taste it. Very soon, the retired Emperor, the Emperor, and the others walked in. When they saw the three-tiered cake, they were all extremely surprised. When the retired Emperor realized what it was, he looked at Zhou Ying and said, You'll have to trouble Mrs. Gu to make one for me on my birthday next year. No problem. When the time comes, you can get someone to come over half a day in advance to inform me. Zhou Ying helped the Empress cut the cake into small pieces and placed them on oil paper for everyone to taste. Those who loved sweet things naturally had a look of enjoyment on their faces. They wanted to eat more after eating a piece. Those who didn't prefer sweet things still finished the cake because of the novelty. The huge cake was quickly divided up by everyone. After the banquet ended, the couple had just returned home when Zhou Huaiming chased after them. Don't tell me he's after the cake? Gu Chengrui shook his head. Good things should be shared, right? With today's experience, as long as we open shop, people will immediately come to buy them. Zhou Huaiming smiled. As expected of a businessman, your brain turns fast. What do you want? Do you want to buy the recipe or cooperate with us? Zhou Ying asked. After Zhou Huaiming heard this, he looked at her and thought of her endless gourmet recipes. They'll pay for the manpower, and you provide the recipe. Well, split it 40 to 60, me 60, you 40. Sure, but we don't have to split 40 to 60, 30 to 70 will do. Let's open a high-end snack shop. Then it's settled. We'll go find a shop now while you think of a few more recipes. Sure, but don't find a shop too small. Don't worry, I know this. Zhou Huaiming didn't even take a sip of water after he finished speaking and hurriedly walked out. He's in such a hurry. Gu Chungrui shook his head. I guess that's so that he can earn more money. By the way, do you think I should open a clinic? If you want to open it, then open it. But if you're going to open one, you might as well open a medical center like a hospital. Chapter 727 worries the female apprentice was finally relieved after hearing her words. Then, the two of them began to learn seriously from her. 3 days later, the two of them finally learned how to make the cake. However, cake decorating requires both eyesight and skill. After they returned, they still had to practice diligently. Of course, apart from teaching them how to make birthday cakes, she also taught them how to make longevity peaches and cakes that people usually eat, including match-flavored cakes and other cakes of various flavors. At the same time, Zhou Huaiming had also found 2 shops in the east and west of the city. That evening, Zhou Huaiming came over with a contract. Come on, sister-in-law. Let's sign the contract and go to the government office to record it. We can open the shop as soon as possible. Zhou took it and looked at it carefully. After confirming that there were no loopholes and that the ratio of the shares was 30%, as discussed, she happily signed and pressed her fingerprint. They'll have to trouble you in the future, Brother Zhou. You're welcome, but you still have to think about introducing 1 or 2 new recipes occasionally. I want to open this cake shop all over the country. No problem. They'll come up with a new recipe every season. Zhou Huaiming pondered for a moment after hearing this. Although 1 recipe per season was a little low, it could still maintain the freshness, so he nodded and agreed. Oh right, where's Brother Gu? Why isn't he here? He asked. He's gone to the manors. Isn't it almost winter? He went to take a look at the situation in the various manors, especially the livestock and poultry. If something went wrong, it would affect the restaurant's business. By the way, he said that he would bring back a sheep tonight. Brother Zhou, do stay and enjoy some barbecue. Maybe another day. I was busy helping the Emperor investigate the Ministry of War a few days ago, so I haven't dealt with my business matters for a long time. From what you're saying, you don't intend to enter the royal court? It's hard work. I've worked hard to save up my family business before, so I can't just ignore it now, right? Didn't Chungrui reject too? He's different from you. He's not used to the disputes in the officialdom. Something like that. By the way, he'll be returning to Dongyang in 3 days. If you have any letters, send them over in the next 2 days. All right, let's discuss it later. After that, she asked someone to bring him a basket of cakes that had been made in the past 2 days. In the imperial residence of king and consort, and took new portraits of men and found Mingyu again. Mingyu, cleaning her sword in the room, saw the portraits in her mother's hand and smiled bitterly. She placed her sword on the table and said, Mother, my dear mother, don't let me see these portraits anymore. They're useless. Since they sent it over, why don't you take a look? What if you find someone you like? We won't force you. After consort and finished speaking, she placed the portraits on the table and sat opposite her. I heard from the servants that you've been a little absent-minded these past 2 days. What's on your mind? Mingyu was stunned by that question. When consort saw this, she knew that she really had something on her mind, but she would not force her to say it if she did not want to. Instead, she stood up and patted her daughter's shoulder. You just have to remember that you're not alone. If anything happens, your father and brother will support you. After saying that, she turned around and walked out. Mingyu's expression stiffened after hearing that. Yes, she was not alone, nor was she from a small family. No matter what, it was not something she could decide alone. Mother, what do you think of Zhou Huaiming? Mingyu immediately stood up and asked just as consort was about to leave. Chapter 728, Testing the Waters. Who? Consort was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise. Zhou Huaiming's market was not bad, but that was for people who intended to cling to the Zhou family. Her family did not lack power and influence. There was no need for her daughter to choose an old man who was 8 years older than her. Zhou Huaiming, General Zhou's second son, the emperor's second cousin, Mingyu replied directly. Why are you suddenly asking about him? After confirming that she had not misheard, consort stepped forward without batting an eyelid. I just suddenly feel that he's different from usual. How is it different? In the past, although he wasn't as cold as the emperor, he still had an appearance that kept people 1,000 miles away. But that day at the little princess' 1-month-old banquet, I realized he seemed different. Although the questions he asked were a little childish, his smile was very sincere. Do you still remember the time when the Zhou family was almost raided? Consort felt a headache when she saw that she was really interested. I remember. Back then, the Zhou family was almost exterminated by the retired emperor. If it wasn't for the Empress Dowager, the three of them wouldn't have survived. Yes, the matter back then was mainly framed by the Empress faction, and it seems that Prime Minister Su's shadow was also involved. Now that those people are all dead and their revenge has been taken, he is naturally much happier. That's true. Then what was his family like before the accident? He's the Emperor's study companion. His knowledge and martial arts aren't bad, but he loves to eat. I heard that back then. He even went to steal from the Imperial kitchen for a bite of food. I didn't pay much attention to anything else. Mingyu nodded in understanding. It seemed that his personality had something to do with his family. The person she saw in the past was not the real him. Consort saw that she was distracted, and her heart skipped a beat. Don't tell me you've fallen for him? He's 8 years older than you. No, I just feel that he's different from what I remember. Mingyu shook his head repeatedly. Consort did not believe it at all. If Mingyu did not like him, why would she pay so much attention to a grown man? That night, Consort told her husband about this. Hubby, what do you think we should do about this? I think the Zhou family's kid is not bad. Although he's a little old, he hasn't been married before. The key was that he had never been heard of entering the brothels for so many years. At least he was not a playboy. Besides, his ability is not bad, and she would have no problem matching Mingyu. Most importantly, the Zhou family's family background is comparable to ours. The problem lies in the family background. I'm mainly worried that the retired emperor won't agree. Every emperor has his own courtiers. As long as the current emperor has no objections, it will be easy for the retired emperor to agree. They'll take the time to ask the Zhou family's kid for his opinion in the next 2 days. Kingen replied, if he is interested in Mingyu, then we can probe the emperor's intentions. Let's say Pungo. He's a junior. If he fails, we can just treat it as a joke. All right, I'll let him know tomorrow. On the second day, after King An's son received the news, he sent someone to keep an eye on Zhou Huaiming, but Zhou Huaiming was so busy that he was nowhere to be seen. Just as he was about to give up, Zhou Huaiming finally entered the palace on the afternoon of the 3rd day. He immediately got someone to call Mingyu over, and when Zhou Huaiming left the palace, they accidentally bumped into each other. Zhou Huaiming saw the two siblings and was surprised. He bowed. Greetings, Princess Mingyu and Aaron. Greetings. It's fate that we bumped into each other. The two of us are going to eat barbecue. Do you want to join us? Aaron asked. Chapter 729, Open Confession, maybe next time. I have to go back and pack up. I'm going on a long journey tomorrow. After Zhou Huaiming finished speaking, he politely nodded, turned around, and hurriedly left. When Aaron saw this, he looked at Mingyu. Look, he's not interested in you. You should give up. Mingyu looked at Zhou Huaiming's back and chased after him. She had finally met someone she liked. How could she give up so easily? Hey, wait. Seeing this, Aaron was shocked and quickly reached out to grab her. However, Mingyu ran too fast, and he grabbed onto nothing. In order to give them time to talk and not to arouse suspicion, he could only walk over slowly. On the other end, just as Zhou Huaiming was about to board the carriage, he was stopped by Mingyu. Do you have someone you like? Zhou Huaiming looked at her reckless actions and was stunned for a moment. He smiled and avoided her hand. What? The princess wants to matchmake me too? I guess so. What do you think of me? After Mingyu finished asking, although her face was red, she still stared at him. Ahem. Zhou Huaiming coughed dryly. Princess, you're not inferior to a man. You're a heroine through and through. However, I am much older than you. It is not suitable. Do you think I'm old? No, Before he could finish, Mingyu spoke again. You're not young anymore. If you want to find someone of the same age, You can only find a widow. I think you're quite suitable. Give me a reply as soon as possible. Ahem. My sister has always been straightforward since she was young. Brother Zhou, please don't take offense. Aaron added and ushered Mingyu into a restaurant. Zhou Huaiming was flustered and helpless at Mingyu's words, and he also felt a little excited for some reason. When he turned around and entered the carriage, he saw his attendant snickering at the side. He huffed, "Drive properly. Don't let anyone know about what happened today. Otherwise, don't blame me for selling you. General, don't worry. I won't say anything. However, General is indeed not young anymore. You should really consider marriage. Otherwise, the butler will have to worry about refusing your marriage. Why don't I give you that job? Don't. I won't say any more." The attendant immediately untied the reins. After he got in the carriage, he started driving back. Zhou Huaiming sat in the carriage, his mind elsewhere. Firstly, he had never had someone confess to him so openly before, so he was pleasantly surprised. Another reason was that he was not sure what his feelings for Mingyu were. In his impression, Mingyu was someone lively, daring to say and do things. She was always in a hurry and had a carefree personality. She had always protected those she liked and never hesitated to speak out against those who did not get along with her. To be honest, he liked her personality. At least when he was with her, he did not have to keep guessing and live so tiredly constantly. However, that was all. He knew nothing else. Or rather, he had never thought that the two of them would be husband and wife one day. For a moment, he really couldn't make up his mind. After returning to the residence, he thought about it for a night and felt that Mingyu was someone he could get along with. But thinking of the retired emperor, he still replied with an ambiguous letter. After receiving the letter, Aaron was delighted. Zhou Huaiming had thought about it all night and did not reject it. This meant that there was still a chance. When he returned home, he told Mingyu about this. You can take a look at the portrait's mother sent you. If there is someone suitable, you don't have to wait for him. Chapter 730 Vigorous in old age in the blink of an eye. It was the opening day of the cake shop. Zhouing went to the two shops to look around. After confirming that they could decorate the cakes perfectly, she took 2 pounds of cake and 2 pounds of date desserts and sent them to the academy for Gu Qinglin before returning home. When it was almost the 12th of the month, Zhou Huaiming finally rushed back and gave them a letter. Then, he went to the palace to look for the emperor. The emperor looked at his travel-worn appearance and hurriedly asked eunuch Qian to fetch him water to wash up. He also asked someone to prepare tea and snacks for him. How's Dongyang doing? The emperor asked Zhou Huaiming after he was almost done eating. Very good. Since last time, the Far East really hasn't sent any more troops. Yunhe County had also regained its former prosperity. Everything went smoothly when they escorted the rations over. Uncle Liu has also cleared out all the unidentified people in Yunhe County. That's good. Yunhe County is not only important to the Navy but also to the entire country, so we must firmly grasp it in our hands. I understand. By the way, I wonder if you have any plans for Princess Mingyu's marriage? Zhou Huaiming asked. Princess Mingyu? I have no objections. Let's see what Kingen thinks. What? Have you taken a fancy to Princess Mingyu? The emperor asked with a faint smile. Ahem. Zhou Huaiming didn't hide anything from him and told him about Mingyu confessing to him before he left. The emperor was surprised when he heard this. He knew that Mingyu was a carefree person, but he didn't expect that she would dare to confess to a man. So, did you agree? He asked. I also think she's not bad. If the retired emperor doesn't interfere, we can get in touch with each other more. If we think it's suitable, then we can settle down. The emperor understood his concerns when he heard this. To put it bluntly, he feared the imperial family would interfere with Mingyu's marriage. He wouldn't, but he couldn't say whether his father would or not. I understand what you mean. I'll give you an answer tomorrow. Thank you, Emperor. If you have no other instructions, I will go home now. Zhou Huaiming stood up. On the other end, Zhouing opened a letter from Gu Chengxi. It was said that Gu Chengye and Gu Chengxi from the patriarch's family had passed the imperial examinations after autumn. They would be coming to the capital for another imperial examination next spring, so he asked if she could help arrange accommodation. Another thing was that the old madam's health was worsening. She hoped that they would come back to visit when they were free. Finally, there were some things about their family matters. What Zhouing did not expect was that Father Gu had taken in another concubine. It was an 18-year-old girl who was now pregnant and was making trouble at home with Mrs. Liu every day. After Zhouing finished reading it, she put it away. Anyway, she would not care about the Gu family's trivial matters. As for entertaining them, there were several empty courtyards in the house anyway. It would be a matter of 2 more sets of bowls and chopsticks, not a big deal. After Gu Chungrui returned, Zhouing gave him the letter. After Gu Chungrui finished reading it, he sneered. He's vigorous despite his old age. I know, right? But should we give the old lady some supplements? Don't worry about this. They'll handle it. Gu Chungrui said, Oh, right. I've chosen a place to open my hospital. It's a 3-entry courtyard in the western part of the city. After some simple repairs, it can open for business next spring. It's good to choose the West District, as the East is mostly the home of the royal family and officials. There are imperial physicians who can be summoned at any time, so there's no need for a hospital there. Zhouing nodded in agreement. Chapter 731 Good news, I think so too. But I have to take care of things over there before the new year, so we'll leave the rest of the family matters to you. All right, let me know if you need any help. In the following days, Gu Chungrui was busy with his hospital. Besides staying home for the winter, Zhouing patrolled the shops and manors, preparing gifts for each family. During this time, Zhou Huiming and Mingyu's marriage was also set, and the date of their wedding was set to be February 18th. On the 23rd of December, Gu Chunglin went home for the holidays. However, he did not stay for long. After inspecting his manors, he went to the hospital to help. On the afternoon of New Year's Eve, Niu Fugue came over with a stack of account books and said, Mistress, these are all the account books for this year. As of the closing day, the 2 restaurants and several manors have earned a total of 22,604 taels of silver. Please take a look. Zhouing was stunned for a moment after hearing that. She really did not expect the amount of profit. Have you given out the bonuses I asked you to give out? It has been distributed. Everyone in the restaurant and the servants in the residence will receive an extra month's salary. Every household will be given 5 pounds of pork, 10 pounds of rice, and 10 pounds of flour. Very good. You did well this year. Continue the hard work. As for your monthly salary, next year it will rise to 50 taels of silver per month. I hope you can live up to this salary. Zhouing said, Thank you for your kindness, mistress. I will do my best. Niu Fugue bowed. By the way, how's the small garden behind us? The flowers are budding. Perhaps it's because it's still early. They haven't bloomed yet. After Niu Fugue left, Zhouing flipped through all the accounts. Because she already went through accounts every month, she focused on the last month. After confirming that there were no problems, she calculated the total and threw it aside when she saw that the numbers matched. In the evening, Zhouing and Gu Chungrui had a New Year's Eve dinner with everyone in the residence. When Zhouing picked up a piece of braised fish and was about to put it in her mouth, she suddenly felt disgusted. She covered her mouth and ran out of the house. Shizhu hurriedly chased after her and patted her back. Mistress, did you catch a cold? They'll bring you a cloak. No need. Go back and eat. Leave this to me. Gu Chungrui walked over and said it thoughtfully. Then, he stepped forward and grabbed Zhou Ying's hand to take her pulse. Zhouing looked at his actions and quickly remembered that her period had been delayed for more than 10 days. She immediately turned her head and looked at him with anticipation. When Gu Chungrui saw this, he had a serious expression on his face. After counting his right hand, he then counted his left hand. Babe, you're going to be a mother. Really? Of course, I wouldn't be wrong about taking your pulse. That's great. It seems like our calculations were right. This way, our child will be born in the golden autumn of August, and it won't be too hot. Yes, our baby is going to be born in August. Shizhu was stunned for a while after hearing this. She shouted in surprise, Mistress, you're pregnant. To be honest, although Zhouing always said that she didn't want one as the reason for their lack of children, Shizhu was quite anxious after no movement all this time. She didn't expect that they were planning to have a child at a specific time. This made her feel completely relieved. Brother Gu. Gu Chenglin heard Shizu's exclamations and immediately ran out. He looked at the two of them with anticipation. Brother Gu, is Sister Zhou really pregnant? Chapter 732 Sending Grain Seeds. Oh, I'm happy today. Everyone in the residence, including the children, will be rewarded with 2 taels of silver. Gu Chengrui turned his head and said, Congratulations, Master, Mistress. Thank you for your reward. Shizhu immediately bowed. Thank you, Brother Gu. Gu Chenglin echoed. When the others heard this, they immediately congratulated him. After everyone had a happy meal, Gu Chengrui personally took the silver and distributed it to everyone. B0x. Calm after returning to the house, Gu Chengrui immediately turned into a chatterbox and began to remind her non-stop about the things to take note of during pregnancy. Zhouing was getting a little impatient. She pushed him away. As long as you don't mess with me, nothing will happen. Ahem. Gu Chengrui coughed dryly and said, In short, you have to be careful. You can eat whatever you want for the first 3 months. After 3 months, when the fetus is stable, you have to eat less but more meals. Otherwise, it will be difficult to give birth to the baby if it gets fat. Got it, great doctor. I think it's better for me to write down the things you need to pay attention to later. Gu Chengrui pinched her cheek. After they entered the inner space, Gu Chengrui asked her to use her mental power to harvest the crops. He took over all the physical labor. Zhouing saw his nervous expression and agreed readily. This was their first child in 2 lifetimes. She did not want any accidents to happen, either. Then, she walked out of the warehouse and looked through the Mother God temples. What she didn't expect was that the Emperor of the Far East had brought all his officials to the Mother God temple to offer incense in the morning. They were asking for chicken and grain seeds. Zhouing was a little surprised, as she knew that the Far East had the lowest level of faith in Mother God. Then, she listened to the discussions of the officials below. Only then did she know they had heard about the matter of the Mother God descending grain seeds on the day of the Ming Dynasty Emperor's ascension. They also saw the value of chicken. Seeing this, Zhouing stood up and printed out the planting methods for wheat, rice, corn, and potatoes, especially the technique of accumulating fertilizer. She hoped that it would be helpful to them. However, the Far East was too small, so she sent all the seeds to the palace. As for the chickens, she gave them 10,000 eggs and kept them warm with baskets of straw and quilts. Fortunately, the patrolling guards in the palace soon discovered it and immediately informed the king. Therefore, the seeds and eggs were quickly taken care of. On the second day, at night, Zhouing felt a large amount of pure faith surging toward her. She immediately understood that the news of the grain seeds had already spread in the Far East. After she finished absorbing it, her divine sense had expanded by another size, extending nearly 100 miles. On the afternoon of the 23rd day of the first lunar month, Gu Chengye, Gu Chengxi, Mrs. Liu, and Gu Chengjian arrived. After Zhouing received the news, she asked Shizhu to inform the kitchen to prepare food and drinks for them. She went out to welcome them. Auntie Liu, Brother Chenjin, Brother Chengye, and Chengxi, please come in. Where's Chengrui? Are you alone at home? Mrs. Liu asked as she looked around the residence. Yeah, Chengrui opened a hospital in West City. Its opening day was less than half a month ago, so he's been a little busy. I've only seen this residence outside before. I didn't expect it to be so exquisite inside. Zhouing smiled and didn't reply. Instead, she asked, by the way, how did you get here? Why didn't you send a letter in advance? We could have sent a carriage to pick you up. We rented a carriage. We're familiar with the capital, so we came directly. Gu Chengye replied. Chapter 733 Arrival. That's true. How's the family now? Is everything okay? Zhouing asked. It's all right, but Grandma's health still hasn't recovered. Second aunt and the others are guarding at home. After entering the house, Zhouing asked Xiaoxiang to fetch some water and let them wash up briefly. Then, she served them a bowl of wontons, buns, and a few side dishes. She said, "You guys make do first. We'll have a good meal tonight." "This is already a good meal," Gu Qingjin replied. "Indeed. Then we want stand on ceremony." Gu Qingye thanked her, picked up his chopsticks, and started eating. B0X. Although Mrs. Lu was a little off-put, since she came at the wrong time, she couldn't find any reason. "Are you going to live together, or separately?" Zhouing asked after they finished eating. "We'll live together. We can discuss anything that way." "All right." Zhouing nodded, and then personally led them to the guest courtyard. This place was just cleaned up. Everything inside is new. See if anything is missing, and he'll get someone to prepare it for you. "This is a guest courtyard, right? Can't we stay in the main courtyard?" Mrs. Lu glanced around and demanded with dissatisfaction. No matter what, they were family. It was awkward for them to live in the guest courtyard. Those 2 courtyards are too small to fit you all. Besides, Cheng Lin lives in the courtyard on the west side. It's not easy to move his stuff out if he's not at home. "It's good here. It's quiet, and it's a good place to study." After Gu Chengye finished speaking, he gave Mrs. Lu a warning glance. Now that Gu Chengrue and his wife are no longer the same as before, she might be chased out if she continues to act like this. It is a quiet place. "All right, we brothers will stay in the East Wing." After Gu Chengxi finished speaking, he walked straight to the East Wing. Although there were 5 rooms in the main house, with Mrs. Lu around, it was uncomfortable for them to live together. Seeing this, Gu Qingye directly brought Mrs. Lu into the largest room. Coincidentally, one was in the east and the other in the west, so every room was occupied. After they settled down, Zhouing called over 2 maids and 2 manservants and assigned them. She went to the kitchen and instructed them to add a few more dishes for dinner. When it was dark, Gu Chengrue walked in with a tired face. Zhouing asked Niu Lirong to make him a pot of pure tea and told him about Gu Qingye and the others coming to the capital. "The exams are at the end of February. They're early." Gu Chengrue spoke as he washed his face. "Maybe they wanted to come over and get to know a few friends." "That's true. Other than food and accommodation, let's not care about anything else. Let them do whatever they want." "I understand." Zhouing nodded in agreement. After Gu Chengrue had a cup of tea and recovered, Zhouing asked Qiuxiang to inform their guests to come over for dinner. She also informed Chuanxiang and the others to prepare the dishes. The dishes for dinner were much more varied. There were garlic ribs, chestnut roast chicken, braised pork, steamed base, stir-fried garlic with bacon, stir-fried pork, garlic and rapeseed, and boiled peanuts. Finally, there was a bowl of steamed egg custard for each of them. Gu Qingye looked at the dishes on the table and exclaimed in surprise, "This is too sumptuous. We're all family. There's no need to be so grand." "Yeah, Chengrue, home-cooked food is pretty good." Gu Chenjin echoed. "You guys just arrived. No matter what, I have to welcome you guys. Hurry up and sit down. It won't taste good if it gets cold. Would you like a drink?" Gu Chengrue asked after everyone sat down. "You and Brother Chenjin can drink. The 2 of us have to participate in the general exams soon, so we want drink." "Oh right, Brother Chengrue. Did you not participate in the provincial examination?" Gu Qingye asked Gu Chengrue. Chapter 734 Fear Indeed. "My ambition is not to be an official, so I didn't participate." Gu Chengrue nodded. "So you will continue to be a 3rd-grade official?" Mrs. Lu asked. "Yes, the Ministry of Agriculture relies on farming skills. There's no need to take the imperial examination." After Gu Chengrue finished speaking, he got up to get some wine and had a few drinks with Gu Chenjin. While eating, Mrs. Lu saw that Zhouing did not eat meat. Confused, she asked, "Zhouing, why aren't you eating the meat?" "Yinger is pregnant and has morning sickness. She'll just have a bowl of egg soup later," Gu Chengrue said. B0X. Mrs. Lu was stunned for a moment and smiled. "Congratulations. It's not easy for you to get pregnant." Gu Chengrue smiled and did not reply. On the other hand, Gu Chengye and the other 2 immediately expressed their joy. "Brother Chenjin, is Sister Z married to Constable Zhang?" Gu Chengrue asked after the meal. "I wanted to wait for you to come back before having the wedding, But the old lady of the Zhang family was anxious, so they rushed to get married before the new year. I heard that Chen is dead? Gu Qingjin asked. Yes, he was beheaded last autumn. The day before, his wife came to ask for help, but we chased her out. She's really shameless. She stole Zi's man and now wants us to save her. Mrs. Liu growled. By the way, how's your clinic's business? Gu Qingye asked. It's fine. I'm just a little tired. Why don't you hire a few more doctors? I will do that. After chatting for a while and finishing a pot of tea, Mrs. Liu and the other three returned to their courtyard. The next morning, after dinner, Mrs. Liu asked Zhouing for a carriage to send her back to the Liu family in the West District. Mrs. Liu's sister, Aunt Liu, was stunned when she saw Mrs. Liu. Sister, when did you return to the capital? I just arrived yesterday. Is everything okay at home? After Mrs. Liu finished speaking, she ushered the coachman to go back. It's all right. I planted a greenhouse with Lord Gu for a year last year, and our days are finally much better. After Aunt Liu updated her status, she led her into the house. Good to hear that. Can you accompany me to our parents' graves? We'll talk when we get back. Why? From the sound of it, you still want to go back to the countryside? That depends on Qingye's results. If he can pass the exams and stay in the capital, he'll stay. Otherwise, it's better to go back to the countryside. Isn't Gu Qingrui in the capital? Mrs. Liu laughed dryly. It's not that comfortable here. It's okay to stay temporarily, but it's not convenient to stay for a long time. She wanted to move over, but her family disagreed. She didn't have the face to do so, either. The key was that Zhouing would not let her stay. Moreover, they were now the emperor's favorites, with Gu wanting helping them in the palace. For the sake of her son's future, she did not dare get into a conflict with them. That's true. If it doesn't work, you can buy a small courtyard to live in first. It depends. On the other end, Gu Qingye and Gu Qingxi went out after dinner and visited Gu Qingye's benefactors and classmates. Meanwhile, Gu Chunjin brought a manservant out for shopping. After Zhouing knew they had all gone out, she was happy. She went out to choose the dowry for Mingyu and the wedding gift for Zhou Huaiming. After that, Zhouing paid little attention to them, besides providing them with good food and drinks. In the blink of an eye, it was February 18th. Because there were too many people going to King An's imperial residence, Zhouing had given Mingyu a set of red coral jewelry the afternoon before. On the day itself, as Zhouing was pregnant and it was getting inconvenient, Gu Qingrui brought Gu Chengye and Gu Qingxi to the Zhou residence to congratulate Mingyu and Zhou Weiming's wedding. Chapter 735 Good Mentality, Try to speak less and listen more later, Gu Qingrui said after bringing the two of them into the residence. He then looked at Gu Chengye. If anyone is looking for trouble, if you can endure it, endure it. But if you can't, don't be afraid. To put it bluntly, we represent Consort Xian now. Don't worry, we won't be angry about what happened before. Gu Qingye nodded. After a few years of living in the countryside, while his edges and corners had not been totally smoothed out, he was no longer young and impetuous. Gu Qingxi nodded, too. B0x. Calm these days, he has followed Gu Qingye out many times. Some were kind to them, while others wanted to gain their favor. Of course, there were also those who were full of malice towards them, and there were even those who slandered them. This was the influence that the Gu family had left behind in the capital. In the beginning, he was indeed a little indignant. However, the more he saw and heard, the more he became indifferent. It was fine as long as they could get along, but if they couldn't, it was fine as long as they stayed away. There was no need to be angry because of petty arguments. Gu Qingrui nodded in satisfaction when he saw this. Then, he brought them to visit a few elders who had to be visited, such as his immediate superior. After giving them a brief introduction, he brought them directly to Grand Scholar Sun, who was Sun Myok's father. Qingrui, do take a seat. Grand Scholar Sun greeted him with a smile. After all, he had saved his daughter's life more than once. If it weren't for Consort Xian, he would have treated him as his nephew. Moreover, he was now the emperor's favorite. Thank you, uncle. After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he called for Gu Chengye and Gu Qingxi to sit down and introduced them to Grand Scholar Sunday. After the Grand Scholar's son learned of their identities, he looked at Gu Chengye in surprise. I recognized Chengye. He's much calmer than before. Thank you for your praise. Uncle Sunday am old enough to not be so frivolous anymore. Gu Chengye nodded. Good. Who hasn't been young and frivolous? As long as your heart is clear, it's better than anything else. Are you all here to participate in the exams? Asked the Grand Scholar's Sunday. Yes, I came to try, given the chance. The Grand Scholar's son nodded in agreement. It's experiential learning. However, the last exam was delayed because of the disaster, so the competition for this exam will be even more intense. You must be mentally prepared. We thought of that too. We'll do our best. At most, we'll wait for the next time. The Grand Scholar's son nodded in agreement. Good mentality. Don't force it. The four of them started chatting, and Gu Chengye and Gu Chengxi knew that this was a rare opportunity. Therefore, they deliberately shifted the topic to intellectual knowledge. The Grand Scholar's son was also a person who loved talking about that. The three were in an engaged conversation, and all Gu Chengruwei could do was help them add some tea. However, they soon attracted many students who were attending the wedding banquet. Everyone surrounded Grand Scholar's son and chatted until the auspicious time arrived before going up to watch the ceremony. After the meal, the Grand Scholar's son chatted with the students for nearly 4 hours before leaving in a hurry. After returning to the residence, Gu Chengye and Gu Chengxi were still somewhat unsatisfied. Then, the two of them looked at Gu Chengruwei. We'll be entering the examination hall the day after tomorrow. I wonder if we can arrange for another meeting with Grand Scholar's son? It's hard to say. He's the main examiner for this examination. I'm sure he'll be entering the examination hall tomorrow. That's a pity. Haven't you guys visited quite a few teachers over the past few days? Why are you still so nervous? Gu Chengruwei suggested. How about this? They'll bring you there tomorrow morning. It would be best if you could see him. If not, I suggest you sum up your gains over the past few days. I'll try my best to answer the questions that I know. Chapter 726, Preparing for the Exam. Thank you so much. Gu Chengye said. We're brothers, so you're welcome. You guys go ahead with your work. I have to go to the hospital to take a look. After Gu Chengruwei finished speaking, he went to the outhouse and asked someone to prepare a carriage to rush to the hospital. Chengruwei has really fallen in love with this profession after practicing medicine for a few years. Gu Chengxi said. It's going well. With the Emperor's protection and Princess Pingyang's son's support, and having only Zhou in the family, as long as he doesn't rebel, he will live a comfortable life, even though he won't be powerful and influential. B0x. That's true. Maybe they really have their own interests. After the two of them looked at each other, they went back to their rooms to sort out their experiences these days. As expected, the three of them missed Grand Scholar's son the next day. Gu Chengye and Gu Chengxi returned to their rooms after they returned home. After lunch, Zhou asked Chuanxiang to cook instant noodles, prepare braised eggs with beef sauce, and cut them into thin slices. Finally, she prepared some chrysanthemums, wolfberries, and pure tea. There was also a tiny brazier filled with charcoal and a small iron pot. After dinner, Zhou asked Chunxiang to give the food to them. Here are some food and supplies I prepared. See if there's anything else you need to add. Tell me, and we'll prepare it as soon as possible. Yeah, you must prepare everything tonight, so you won't be in a hurry tomorrow morning. Gu Chengruwei nodded in agreement. Yes, hurry up and check. You will be entering the examination hall tomorrow. Mrs. Liu immediately echoed. After hearing that, the two of them did not stand on ceremony, and they began to examine it seriously. After they finished checking, Zhou told them how to cook the instant noodles. Do you want some pears? But there's a risk of having a stomachache. Thank you, sister-in-law. This is already very well prepared. It's all food that we don't have to check again. As for pears, I think that's not needed. Tea will do. Gu Chengye replied. All right, but can we bring some more charcoal? It's cold at night, and it'll be troublesome if we catch a cold. Gu Chengxi asked. Sure, we have plenty of charcoal at home. By the way, we'll prepare some medicine for you. After Gu Chengruwei finished speaking, he got up and asked Chuanxiang to get the charcoal. He went to his small pharmacy and took some pills for a cold. He also took some ginger brown sugar he had prepared for Zhou and gave it to them. The next morning, Gu Chungrui woke up early and accompanied the two of them to have a nutritious breakfast. After that, he got someone to prepare a carriage and sent the two of them to the examination hall with Mrs. Liu and Gu Chunjin. Mrs. Liu looked at the others bringing only steamed buns and secretly rejoiced. The things that Zhou had prepared for them were standards above and could improve their performance during the exams. After they successfully entered the examination halls, Mrs. Liu turned to Gu Chungrui and said, "I'm relieved now that they're in. I want to return to my parents' home for a few days. They'll return after they get their results." "Sure." Gu Chungrui nodded. After speaking, Mrs. Liu carried a small bag and got a carriage to send her to the Liu residence. "When I came, my father was worried that she would cause trouble. I didn't expect her to be so quiet." Gu Chunjin looked at the carriage that had gone far away and smiled. "Although she is snobbish, she is very shrewd. Otherwise, she would not have been able to capture my father's heart after successfully giving birth to a son and a daughter under Princess Ping Yang's nose." "That's true. You guys are no longer the same as before. Even she wants to cling to you guys. How would she dare offend you?" Gu Chunjin said, "By the way, I've been wandering around the capital these days and found some hand-woven gadgets that are not bad. Do you think I can earn some money by reselling them in our hometown?" Chapter 727 Abnormality. You mean those delicate butterflies, grasshoppers, rabbits, and other small toys? Yes, I saw that there were quite a lot of people buying it, and it was quite expensive. Then, do you think that if your son asked you to spend 100 to buy him a woven trinket, would you be willing to buy it? I don't want to, but I'm sure the young masters and young mistresses of wealthy families will like it, right? To put it bluntly, the Gu family isn't considered poor in the countryside, right? How many families do you think are wealthier than the Gu family? B0x. Tom, do you even know how to make it yourself? If you don't, is it worth taking the goods from others and sending them back long distance? I can learn it. It looks pretty simple to me. Why don't you learn how to weave a fan instead? When the time comes, you can use straw and bamboo to weave fans. Even selling straw hats is better than selling those things. After opening your shop, you might even be able to start a small workshop. Fan, straw hat? These are indeed easier to sell. Gu Chunjin nodded thoughtfully. Gu Chungrui saw this and did not persuade him anymore. Instead, after sending him back to the residence, he went straight to the hospital. Gu Chunjin thought about it and still went out to learn. By the time Zhou received the news, 5 days had passed. However, she didn't interfere. Instead, she quietly nurtured her baby. This day, the head Fong came over after delivering some vegetables. "Mistress, should we plant the same thing in the manner as last year? Are we planting leafy greens, peanuts, and soybeans? Last year's vegetables didn't look good, right?" "Yes, but they grow quite well after putting on enough fertilizer in the winter. However, the amount of fertilizer is really limited, so plant as much as we can. We'll discuss the rest with Chungrui and see what's suitable." "Noted. I'll take my leave." Head Fong turned around and walked out after he finished reporting. "What do you think?" Zhou asked Gu Chungrui after she entered her inner space at night. "What about you? You go first." "I saw that the grapes grew quite well last year. Why don't we plant more grapes? When the time comes, the profits will be higher after wine is made. We can continue to plant vegetables in the place in the closed shed. Soybeans and peanuts are the same." "True. It's the same if we change another manner to plant the vegetables. By the way, help me find some perilla seeds later. I want to plant some perilla on the mountain. It's really too expensive to buy them from outside. Take a few more outside. At that time, you'll have an excuse to take them from the inner space." "Yeah, there are quite a lot of medicinal herbs in the inner space." After Gu Chungrui nodded, he went to get busy. Meanwhile, Zhou went to the warehouse. When she finished her work, she turned around and realized that she could enter the main room of the palace. She walked over and pushed the door open. Sure enough, the door creaked open and revealed a massive hall. However, there was only one futon inside. She walked over curiously and sat on it. Soon, she realized that something was slowly rushing into her body, causing her to feel a burst of soreness. However, she soon felt a wave of pain, and she was so frightened that she immediately stood up. At this moment, a piece of information appeared in his mind. This futon was where Mother God usually meditated and cultivated. Under the futon was the center of the interspace, and the thing that flowed into her body was spiritual energy. Because she had not cultivated yet, her body could not withstand the intense baptism of spiritual energy. She tried to push the rooms on both sides, but could not enter any of them. She closed the door of the hall and retreated, heading to the vegetable field to pick up some chili peppers. When Gu Chungrui learned of the abnormality in the hall, he said, "You're pregnant now. Don't poke around too much. Let's do that about it after the child is born." Chapter 728 Scholar I know. Since no cultivation techniques are mentioned in Mother God's memories, it means that it's not time yet. Gu Chungrui hugged her tightly after hearing that. At the same time, there was a trace of panic in his heart. What if she could cultivate? What would happen to him? What would happen to their child? He couldn't possibly let her send them away again and again. That would be too cruel to her. Zhouing felt his unease, turned her head, and kissed him. "Don't worry. If we can't cultivate together, we'll grow old together. We'll see. Maybe there's something good waiting for us in the remaining 2 rooms." Gu Chungrui rubbed his face against hers. B0x. Calm, yes. Since Mother God can foresee the future, she will definitely be able to see you. She will have something for us. After Gu Chungrui heard that, he also had the same feeling. He nodded and did not reply. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the exams. Gu Chungrui and Gu Qingjin arrived at the examination hall in advance, looking at each other when they saw Mrs. Liu waiting outside the examination hall. It must be said that Mrs. Liu was an excellent mother to Gu Changya. Soon, the students opened the doors and walked out. Some were crying, some were wailing, and of course, some were excited. But there were very few. There were also those who were carried out by the soldiers. After Gu Qingye and Gu Qingxi came out, although they did not look too good, they still looked normal. After Gu Chungrui greeted them, he went straight back to the residence. He asked the servants to prepare a bath. "You two clean up, eat something and have a good sleep. We'll talk about it tomorrow." "Thank you." Gu Chengxi cupped his fists. Gu Qingye nodded and went back to his room to wash up. As for Gu Qingjin and Mrs. Liu, seeing that Gu Chungrui did not ask about the exam, the 2 of them were too embarrassed to ask. Instead, they went to the kitchen to get food. They carefully sorted out the things the 2 had brought back. Gu Chungrui saw that he had nothing else to do, so he returned to his room to rest. 5 days later, the list was posted. Gu Qingxi had passed the examination, but was ranked 43rd among the 3rd-grade scholars. Gu Chengye, on the other hand, failed. After receiving the news, Gu Chungrui first congratulated Gu Chengxi. He said to Gu Chengye, "Don't take it to heart. You did your best." Gu Qingye smiled and said, "You don't have to comfort me. Actually, I've already expected it. After all, when I was in middle school, I was only below average. I just came to try my luck." He looked at Gu Qingxi. "Congratulations. You must treat us later. Let's have a good drink." "No problem. I heard that the restaurant opened by sister-in-law is doing quite well." "Let's go over and have a good meal. Then it's settled," Gu Qingye replied with a smile. Although Mrs. Liu was slightly disappointed, she said nothing when she saw that Gu Changye was unaffected. After the court examinations, Gu Chengxi's ranking had risen by 8 places, and his ranking was no longer as embarrassing. The next day, the officers and soldiers arrived to report the good news. Gu Chungrui personally received them and gave them a reward. That night, Gu Chengxi treated everyone to a hearty meal at a restaurant in the city's eastern part. Of course, Zhouing had Niu Fugue give them a 40% discount, which was the cost price. Just as everyone was eating happily, they suddenly heard someone causing trouble. Zhouing was about to get up when Gu Chungrui pressed her down and stood up. "Oh, go. You guys eat." After he left, Mrs. Lu asked in surprise. With your current status, there are still people who dare to come to the restaurant to find trouble. Chapter 739A Toast. There are all kinds of people in this world. There are many people who hate the rich. It's not strange. Zhouing smiled. Indeed, but from the sound of it, it should be a drunkard causing trouble. It's nothing serious. Gu Qingye echoed. Mrs. Lu didn't speak after that. Did you tell your family the good news after you passed the imperial examination? Zhouing asked Gu Qingxi. On the day the notice was posted, my big brother sent a letter home. I think they should be receiving it as we're speaking. B0X. That's good. This is a joyous occasion for the entire family. You have to celebrate properly when you return. Are you going back with us this time? Gu Qingxi nodded and asked. Let's discuss it later. If the hospital can be freed, we'll go back. All right, we'll go together then. Very soon, Gu Qingrui walked in and said, it's just a few students who failed the exam using alcohol to vent their anger. It's nothing serious. Let's hurry up and eat, as it'll get cold soon. This happens after every examination. It's not strange, Gu Qingye said. He had even seen an old scholar who had hanged himself during the provincial examination last year. It was said that the person was a student from a mountainous area. When he came out, the money he took out was the silver that the entire village had pooled together for him. After failing the exams, his heart was filled with guilt, and in the end, he walked down a dead end. Indeed, that's why being a scholar is so precious. Come, let's toast Qingxi and congratulate him on becoming a scholar. Gu Qingrui raised his glass for a toast. Everyone immediately congratulated Gu Qingxi. After Gu Qingxi downed a glass of wine, he poured a cup of wine and tea for Gu Qingrui and Zhou Ying, respectively. To be honest, it's all thanks to you and your wife's hospitality this time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to enter the examination hall so easily. Brother Qingye, and I thank you here. After he finished speaking, he raised his glass and glanced at Gu Qingye. Gu Qingye immediately stood up and agreed. Yes, yes. This toast must be made. Not only did you provide us with a good learning environment, but you also provided us with good food and drinks. As your brother, I will remember this favor. If you need help in the future, just let me know. I want stand-on ceremony, so write more letters to us in the future. Gu Qingrui nodded. After the three of them put down their glasses, Gu Qingxi poured another glass of wine and raised it. I also have to thank Brother Qingrui. It was you who made me understand the importance of farming. That's why I managed to get a few more marks in the court examinations. Oh, there's something about farming in the court examinations? Yes, it's on the importance of farming. It sounds like the emperor wants to separate farming and set up a department that specializes in researching seeds. That's true. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good idea to always rely on Mother God's bestowment. Indeed, relying on the mountain for food is filled with uncertainty. It's better to hold it in your own hands. After that, they chatted for a while. When Gu Qingrui and the others were drunk, they went home. Early the next morning, Zhou Ying and Gu Qingrui gave Shizhu a few instructions and drove the carriage out early in the morning. When they reached the manor at the foot of the mountain, they placed 50 acres worth of grape seedlings and some purple perilla seeds outside the manor. After that, Gu Qingrui went to the manor to wake up Headfong and asked them to bring the grape seedlings and seeds into the manor. I've discussed it with Qingrui. We'll plant grapes and perillas on this side of the mountain. Then, we'll plant the rest with soybeans except for the shed. Zhou Ying said to Headfong. All right, they'll find someone to plant the grape seedlings now. Headfong nodded and turned around, calling out to all the long-term workers. Of course, except for a few who stayed behind to feed the livestock, the others all went to the foot of the mountain to plant grapes. During this time, Gu Qingrui also taught them how to trim the grapevines and plant the extra branches that grew from the grapevines on the mountain into the ground. Chapter 740. Entering the palace when it was time to leave at night, Gu Qingrui told him how to plant perillas. The next day, Gu Chungrui took some medicinal herb seeds and went to the farm that the government had bought. He scattered the medicinal herb seeds all over the mountain. Gu Qingxi asked me if we should go back together. What do you think? Zhouing asked after she was done with the arrangements for the manor. Gu Chungrui was silent for a moment before saying, "Isn't the madam in poor health? Chunglin and I definitely have to go back. As for you, the transportation now is inconvenient, and you're pregnant. So it's better if you don't go back and forth. B0X. Calm, all right? When you go back, prepare more gifts for each family. Also, get Sun Hongliang to start building workshops. First, build a vermicelli workshop and a tofu workshop. We will need tofu strips and fermented bean curd. Actually, we can also ask them to produce chili oil, beef sauce, mushroom sauce, and so on. There are many boats in Qingshui town, and the humidity on the boats is heavy. It's inconvenient for the sailors to carry food, so we can sell these products there." "That's right. When you head back, see if you can get everyone to plant more chili. If not, we can only wait until next year." "Understood. Leave this to me." In the next few days, Zhouing began to prepare all kinds of gifts for Gu Chungrui to bring back, including gifts for Manager Lu and some other good friends. After the two of them were almost done with their work, Gu Chungrui went to the palace to look for the emperor. He wanted Gu Wanning, Gu Chengye, and Gu Chengxi to meet each other so that they could find a backer for each other. The emperor naturally understood what he needed. Thinking of the Gu family's current weak power, he replied happily, "Tomorrow, you can bring them into the palace. I will inform the guards." "Thank you, Emperor. Do get up. It's a rare opportunity for us to meet our relatives. How can I stop you?" After the emperor finished speaking, he asked about his plan. Knowing that Gu Chungrui really had no interest in politics, the emperor could only let him go. After returning, Gu Chungrui went to the guest courtyard. He saw the four people learning how to weave small toys. "Everyone, stop for a moment. Tomorrow, I will bring you into the palace to meet Consort Xian. Remember to dress as decently as possible tomorrow." "Really? It just so happens that I've made 2 sets of clothes in the past 2 days. They'll come in handy." Mrs. Lu looked at him expectantly. Even though she had lived in the capital for many years, she and Mrs. Yao had never entered the palace because of Princess Pingyang. Even if they were to attend the banquet, it was because Princess Pingyang refused to attend that she allowed them to go. Therefore, she was really looking forward to entering the palace. Of course, but you have to be more careful when you're in the palace. If you say something rude, you might lose your head. When Gu Chungrui said this, he deliberately looked at Mrs. Lu. Mrs. Lu quickly nodded. "Don't worry. No matter what, I've lived in the capital for so many years. I won't say anything I can't." Gu Chungrui nodded and looked at Gu Chenjin and his brother. "Brother Chenjin, do you want me to help you get dressed?" "I'll have to trouble you for that. Our clothes are okay for normal wear, but if we enter the palace, they won't be presentable." Gu Chenjin stood up and said, "Let's go," Gu Chungrui said as he looked at Gu Chengye. "All right, they'll return the silver to you later." Gu Chengye stood up and said, "No need. We're brothers. I can afford the clothes." After Gu Chungrui finished speaking, he brought them to the boutique to buy clothes. Mrs. Lu was annoyed. She would not have mentioned the new clothes if she had known that he would help her with their clothes. Zhouing prepared some snacks, a set of spicy hot pot base, sour soup hot pot base, mushroom soup hot pot base, and some dipping sauce, and headed into the palace with them early the next morning. He thought of the new article last year that forced marriage at an age and replied, "I think it's manpower. No matter if it's agriculture, commerce, the military, or any other industry, it depends on manpower. Without the manpower to work and create, it's all empty talk." "Any more?" The emperor nodded. "There is also business. Only when business is prosperous as soon as possible can people's lives improve. Just like the pier in our Qingshui town. Once the dock opened, not only did the town become active, but even the poor could earn some money to support their families. Scholars, farmers, merchants, and businesses support each other. How should I put it? It should be said that each has its own use. Scholars, farmers, and workers could form a country, but if people wanted to exchange what they needed and wanted to live a good life, they could not do without merchants. Just like the tea industry, it would be even more difficult for us to drink tea without merchants. There's also rice and silk from the south. Without merchants, it would be difficult to transport them to the north. I feel that merchants are a bridge connecting all the country's corners. With them, we can feed a large number of people. Chapter 742, returning home 10 days later, Gu Qingxi was appointed as the county magistrate of Pingyang Manor. Coincidentally, he was appointed to replace Chun Pong's original position. It made one sigh. What an ill-fated fate. At night, he looked for Gu Chengrui. Brother Chengrui, are you coming back with us? We're going back soon, as he'll need to be in Pingyang in half a month. I didn't expect the appointment to come so soon. You guys pack up, and we'll leave tomorrow. It'll be much faster to go back by boat this time. Gu Chengrui stood up and said, All right, then he'll go back and pack. B0XO. Come after Gu Chengxi left, Gu Chengrui went straight to the academy to fetch Gu Qinglin back so that he could make some preparations. The following day, the group of people rushed to the dock. After they left, Zhouing heaved a sigh of relief. Since she had nothing to do, she personally made some snacks and then rushed to the Zhou residence with Shizhu. When he went in, he saw Mingyu scolding someone angrily. She stood at the side and waited for her to finish scolding before going forward. Who provoked you? Why are you so angry? Wow, Sister Zhou, what delicious food did you bring me? Mingyu saw the basket in her hand and immediately walked up to her. I made some cakes, biscuits, and salty snacks myself. That's great. I've wanted to eat them for a long time, but am too embarrassed to come to your house with your guests there. You're overthinking. They don't usually come to the backyard. How's your married life? Zhouing asked. Are you used to it? I'm not used to it. I didn't have to worry about anything when I was at the imperial residence. After coming here, I have to do everything myself, especially after caring for the house. I'm really exhausted. You'll get used to it. Also, you have so many people to support. You have to learn to delegate your power. Otherwise, you'll be exhausted from all the big and small things in the residence. Yes. I'll give up my power after I've sorted it out. Mingyu nodded in agreement. After they entered the house, they chatted for a while. They had lunch at the Zhou family's home before Zhouing returned. Conversely, Gu Chengrui and his group returned to Qingshui town smoothly 3 days later. After getting off the boat, he hired 4 carriages and returned to Shanghe village with his belongings. When the children playing at the village entrance saw so many carriages entering the village, they immediately surrounded them. Sitting in the first carriage, Gu Qingjin and his brother had no choice but to get out of the carriage and give each of them some candy. Gu Qingjin's son saw them and immediately shouted, Dad, second uncle, you're finally back. I missed you so much. Our village's scholar has returned to the village. The others immediately shouted. After shouting, they immediately dispersed, but they did not stop along the way, because they all remembered that as long as the scholar returned to the village, they would be able to feast. With their shouts, the entire village soon knew of their return. The people at home immediately ran out. When they saw Gu Chengxi, they congratulated him and lined the streets to welcome him. It was a lively scene. Mrs. Liu looked at the crazy people outside and said sourly, It's just a scholar title. Is it necessary? Gu Qingye immediately warned her sternly, Mother, you can only say this in front of me. Don't ever say it outside. Otherwise, if you anger the clan leader, he won't let you off easily. Besides, being a scholar is indeed worth showing off. Don't forget that your son hasn't even passed the imperial examination. Aren't you looking down on me? Chapter 743 Thoughts. You're smart even if you don't pass the exams. Don't forget, you haven't touched any books for 2 or 3 years. Later, ask your father to find a way to donate an official position for you, and you can still become a county magistrate. What are you thinking about? The general exams just ended with more than 200 scholars. It's already enough. Do you think there would be an empty official position? Although Mrs. Liu was still somewhat unwilling after hearing this, she did not say anything else. After Gu Chunjin and his brother led the crowd far away, their group immediately rushed forward. B0XO. Calm after Mrs. Liu and her son exited the carriage, Gu Chungrui brought the things back home. Mother Chiu heard the commotion and immediately ran out. She was stunned when she saw Gu Chungrui. Master, you're back? I'll go get the keys now. After saying that, she ran back home and quickly took out a key to open the door. The house has been kept clean for the past 2 years. You can live in it as you did. Thank you. You're welcome. By the way, isn't Mistress back yet? She's pregnant. The journey is too far, so I didn't let her come back. She's pregnant? Congratulations. Thank you. You go ahead with your work. Let's catch up after I've tidied up the house. No problem. Then this servant will return first. After Mother Chiu finished speaking, she turned around and went home. When Gu Chungrui saw this, he opened the door of the main house and took a glance. Sure enough, it was spotless inside, just like before they left. Then, he asked the coachman to help move the things in. After paying the bill, he dismissed them. After he was done, Gu Chenglin asked for the location of the toilet, grabbed 2 toilet papers, and ran away. Gu Chengrui returned to his room and was about to sit down to rest for a while. Third brother, you're finally back. Gu Chengshi ran in excitedly. What are you doing at home? He asked. Didn't you go to school? We're busy planting chili seedlings in the fields and don't have enough manpower at home, so I took a few days off. Where are the others? Father, second uncle, and big brother are each on a boat and running around. Second brother went to the capital, so I can only take over. But it's almost over. By the way, where's sister-in-law? I've been wanting to eat her cooking for a long time. Gu Chengshi asked. Do you miss your sister-in-law or her cooking? Both. To be honest, the dishes at the restaurant are still a little inferior compared to sister-in-law's cooking. Then you'll be disappointed. Your sister-in-law is pregnant, and it's inconvenient for her to travel back and forth, so she didn't come back. Oh, right. How's Grandma's condition? Gu Chungrui asked him to sit down. To be honest, it's not that good. Right now, she's only relying on the precious medicinal herbs that you asked someone to bring back. Otherwise, I'm afraid that before the new year, it seems that Aunt's death was a huge blow to her. Indeed, after fainting that time, her body has been good and bad at times. By the way, I heard that my cousin has entered the palace as a concubine. Gu Chengshi asked. Yes, Consort Xian. Learn well? Try to participate in the next general exams. They'll bring you to her then. Gu Chengshi shook his head. To be honest, after the shakedown, I'm not interested in an official career. I might as well continue studying medicine to support my family. Have you forgotten how the Qiao family suppressed you in every way? Without power, you can only suffer. I remember that, so I listened to my father and entered the academy. It would be best if I could get into the academy, but I don't plan to be an official after I get in. I want to find a school to teach or continue practicing medicine. Chapter 744 Tears of Joy, alright? It depends on your preferences. Gu Chengrui nodded. He himself had no interest in an official career, so he would not have any requirements for him. Just as he finished speaking, Gu Chenglin walked in and was stunned when he saw Gu Chengshi. Gu Chengrui stood up and introduced them to each other. The two of them had met each other when they were young, so they immediately recognized each other after his introduction. B0XO. Come after a few polite words, Gu Chenglin realized that Gu Chengshi was almost a head taller than him. He immediately said indignantly, If I remember correctly, Brother Chengshi is 2 years older than me. I didn't expect you to be so tall now. I only started growing in the past 2 years, Gu Chengshi replied. Don't be envious. You're almost there, too. Regardless of gender, anyone will develop rapidly from 12 to 14 years old, and there will be a period of voice change, just like Chengshi now. When Gu Chungrui said this, he gave them a simple explanation about puberty. So, you have to study hard and stop thinking about getting a wife. Wait until after 20 to consider it. His words made the two boys blush. Gu Chungrui saw this and added, "You guys continue chatting. I have to tidy up the house. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep well tonight." After saying that, he got up and climbed onto the brick bed. First, he carefully checked it. After ensuring there were no rat holes, he removed a blanket from the cabinet. He had wanted to hang it out to dry, but he was surprised when he noticed that the blanket had obviously just been cleaned. Moreover, it looked like it had been washed recently. It was spotless. He took it out and laid it on the bed. After finishing that, he unpacked his gifts and planned to bring them to the old residence. He turned to the two brothers, who were still chatting. "Let's go and see Grandma. If we go now, do I need to change my clothes?" Gu Qinglin said, "No need. Your clothes aren't dirty. Let's go." When they heard this, the two boys immediately grabbed their things and walked out. Gu Chungrui locked the door and followed. Gu Chengye, who was drinking tea in the living room, greeted them as he saw them enter. "You're here. Grandma is waiting for you in the room. Let's go together." Gu Chungrui nodded, then turned around and walked straight to the east room. Madame Chow heard the sounds and immediately came out with a walking stick. "It's too dark in the room. Let's talk outside." When Gu Chungrui saw this, he could only let Gu Qinglin and Gu Chengxi put the things on the table. Madame Chow grabbed Gu Qinglin's hand and said excitedly, "You must be Chenglin. I didn't expect you to be so big now." Gu Qinglin was a little uncomfortable initially, but when he saw the tears in her eyes, he was stunned and smiled. "Grandma, it's me. I heard that you're not feeling well. How are you feeling now? Are you cold?" "I'm fine. Now that the weather is warm, my body is much lighter." Madame Chow said, "That's good. Cousin brother and I brought back a lot of delicious food for you this time, especially your favorite apples, pears, and thousand-layer pastries." Good child. You still remember what Grandma likes to eat?" Madame Chow nodded repeatedly and wiped her tears at the same time. When Gu Chungrui saw this, he went forward and said, "Grandma, they're living well now. One passed the scholar examination, and the other entered the palace to become consort Xian. You should be happy." "Grandma, don't cry. You're making me want to cry too." Gu Qinglin replied helplessly, "No, I'm just too happy. Seeing that all of you are living well, I'm happy for your mother." Madame Chow took out her handkerchief and wiped her tears. Chapter 745 Guilt. When Gu Qinglin heard her mention his mother, he remembered how his mother was treated in the residence after the Gu family was raided, and how the Chui family bullied them. Immediately, tears began to flow from his eyes. "Mother, don't cry. Look, you've made the boy cry too." At this moment, Mrs. Yao came out of the room with a bundle in her hand. After saying that, she carried it and walked out. Gu Chungrui smelled the unpleasant smell and finally understood why the old lady did not let them in her room. B0XO. Madame Chow handed a clean handkerchief to Gu Qinglin and said, "Boy, don't cry. Everything is in the past, so live a good life in the future. If you have any difficulties, look for your cousin and your two uncles. They won't ignore you." "I know. It was all thanks to Cousin Chungrui and Cousin Zhouing. Otherwise, we would have been killed by those Sus. I knew that the aunt and niece of the Chui family weren't good people. Your mother is just soft-hearted. Otherwise, she wouldn't have." Madame Chow sighed and didn't say anything more. Instead, she asked about the siblings' current lives and learned that Gu Chungrui had appropriately arranged them. While she was satisfied with Gu Chungrui and his wife, she was also filled with guilt. She looked at Gu Chungrui and said, "It's been hard on you and your wife these 2 years. I feel guilty." Gu Chungrui secretly rolled his eyes, thinking to himself, "So now you feel that?" He had been sitting here for a long time, but she had not greeted him one bit. However, he couldn't say that. "Grandma, you flatter me. It's also our fate that we met. Besides, they're all obedient and sensible. It can be considered helping each other. Madame Chow smiled and nodded. Good, good. A family really has to help each other in the future. You younger generation should also communicate, meet, and interact more. Only then can you get closer. Oh, right. Where's Ing? Why isn't she here? She glanced around and asked. She's pregnant. It's too far to travel back here, so I didn't let her come. Pregnant? It's good that she's pregnant. You two have been married for 4 to 5 years. You finally have an heir. I can finally rest assured. Madame Chow said happily. After that, she instructed him seriously, Zhou, that girl. Although her background is a little low, she's quite outstanding in all aspects. Moreover, she's also kind. You have to treat her well in the future. Don't worry, Grandma. They'll definitely treat her well. You haven't had a cup of tea since you came back, right? Hurry up and drink some tea to moisten your throat. At this moment, Mrs. Liu carried a pot of tea and a few teacups as she walked in. Thank you, Annie Liu. Thank you, Aunt. Gu Chungrui and Gu Chunglin quickly stood up. Gu Chengya also stood up and took the teapot, helping everyone pour tea. Seeing this, Mrs. Liu asked, You guys have nothing over there, right? Just eat here for the next few days. There's no point in starting a stove back there. Yes, yes. Do eat here. It's not easy for you to come back. Spend more time with this old woman. Madame Chow then asked, Why don't we just stay here? No one has lived in your house for such a long time. The house must be damp. It's fine. The Tian family has been helping to clean up our house. It's no different from before we left. Gu Chungrui looked at Gu Chunglin. You can stay there if you want. There are places to stay on both sides. Why don't you sleep with me, Qinglin? It'll be great to have a companion tonight. Gu Chengxi asked happily. Gu Chunglin hesitated and shook his head. My luggage is over there. I'd better follow Brother Chungrui. It's quite spacious over there anyway. We'll come back during the day. There were too many people in this house. The more people there were, the more conflict there could be. It was better for him not to cause trouble. Chapter 746. Oh, a big favor. Conversely, after Gu Chenjin and Gu Chengxi returned home, Mrs. Fong immediately distributed the candy she had prepared earlier to everyone. After a round of polite greetings, everyone dispersed. Sister-in-law, where's Mrs. Bai? Gu Chengxi turned to look around. She went back to her mother's house. After receiving the letter that you passed the imperial examination, she went back to her mother's house to report the good news. She hasn't returned yet. Mrs. Fong replied. Gu Chengxi was a little unhappy when he heard this. He was busy farming now. Why didn't she help out at home instead of staying at her mother's house? Where's mother? Gu Chenjin asked. They're watching the long-term workers plant chili seedlings in the field. I was about to bring them water. There's some boiled water in the kitchen. You can make whatever tea you want. After Mrs. Fong finished speaking, she picked up an earthen jar and was about to put it on the small cart. They'll go with you. After Gu Chunjin said this, he instructed Xiao Duzi not to run around. Then, he and Mrs. Fong sent drinking water to the field. Halfway there, they met Mrs. Wang rushing back. When she saw Gu Chenjin, she smiled. You're really back. Come back early after sending the water to the field. Got it, mother. We'll go over first. After Gu Chunjin finished speaking, he and Mrs. Fong pushed the cart into the field. On the other hand, Mrs. Wang and the patriarch had entered one after the other. When the two of them saw Gu Chengxi, they greeted him. When they learned that Gu Chungrui and his wife had been treating them well, the patriarch said, Chungrui is such a kind child. We really didn't misjudge him back then. Update on Biomicron X0VEL. Siomicron him in the future. You two should interact more and treat each other like brothers. Gu Chengxi nodded in agreement. I will. By the way, they'll be sent to Pingyang province to be the county magistrate. They'll be taking up my post in 10 days. It's the county where Chunpeng was originally located. So fast? Back then, Chunpeng was assigned there because your third uncle and the others requested someone heavily. To put it bluntly, Brother Chungrui used his connections, a strong one. At this point, Gu Chengxi told them about how Gu Chungrui had brought them into the palace to visit Consort Xian, and how the emperor had tested him. The patriarch nodded after hearing this. It seemed that he owed them a big favor. Then, he said, "It seems that the emperor is also sentimental. Do well in the future. Don't let the emperor down. Don't embarrass Consort Xian and Cheng Rui." "Don't worry, father. I will." The patriarch nodded and looked at Mrs. Wang. "Tomorrow night, make more delicious food and invite Cheng Rui for a good meal." Additionally, becoming a scholar is a joyous occasion for our clan, village, and even the entire county. You should prepare more food over these 2 days. We'll invite our relatives, friends, Cheng's teachers, and classmates. After saying this, he got up and returned to his room to take out a perpetual calendar. After flipping through it, he turned to Gu Chengxi. "How about 3 days later? That way, after you're done entertaining guests, you'll have ample time to prepare for your appointment." "They'll heed your suggestions, father. However, there's no need for a big banquet. Just 30 tables will be enough." "How can that be? It has to be 100 tables, no matter what. Don't forget, there will definitely be many uninvited wealthy people coming." Gu Chengxi was taken aback. "Father, you can put the clans and villages' fields under my name. Don't agree to anything else. It'll be a huge problem if we get involved." The patriarch nodded in agreement. "Don't worry. I know this better than you. Other than the villagers, I won't agree to anyone else's requests." The two of them went to Gu Shengrui's old residence for breakfast. After breakfast, Gu Chenglin stayed behind and followed Gu Chengxi to the fields. Meanwhile, Gu Chengrui rushed to the manor. He ran into Mrs. Wang not long after he left the house. He quickly walked up to her. "Auntie, I was just about to look for you." Mrs. Wang smiled. "What is it?" "There are 2 things. First, your uncle wants to invite you over for dinner tonight. Another thing is, Chengxi has already passed the imperial examination. We were thinking of holding a banquet for him the day after tomorrow, so we wanted to buy some beef from you." "Is 1 cow enough?" "We're planning to host 100 tables. I don't know if it's enough. Do you know?" "That depends on what dish you want to cook. However, whether it's braised or stewed, usually 2 pounds of raw meat will produce 1 pound of cooked meat." Mrs. Wang counted with her fingers and replied, "1 is enough. We'll take 1 first." Chapter 748, Exploring the Manor. "Should I deliver it tomorrow?" "Yes, do send it over tomorrow morning. It's just in time for me to cook the meat sauce in advance." "Do you want to choose a cow yourself, or do you want us to help you choose?" "Do as you see fit. I trust you." "All right, remember to come over for dinner tonight." Afterward, they exchanged a few more polite words before Gu Chengrui went straight to the manor. "Boss, you guys are finally back." Qian Zhuang and Gu Erjiang, who were about to pull the cattle and sheep out, immediately surrounded him enthusiastically when they saw him. "Yeah, I'm finally back. Are you guys all right?" Gu Chengrui asked. "Thanks to you, we're living well," Qian Zhuang said. "Yeah, not only do we get to eat our fill, but we also get to wear warm clothes. We also have a wife and children now. I didn't even dare to think about these before." Gu Erjiang agreed with a silly smile. "So, you're both married and have children?" Gu Chengrui said. "Yes, but Erjiang's child is only 6 months old and hasn't been born yet," Qian Zhuang said. "Very good. Live well in the future." Gu Chengrui glanced at the meat in the carriage. "You guys go and deliver the meat first. We'll talk later." Update on Biomicron X0VEL. Siomicron M alrighty. We'll get busy first. After Qian Zhuang finished speaking, the two of them each drove the ox cart to town. After Gu Chengrui went in, he went straight to the field and found over 100 acres of land planted with chili peppers. That's right. Rice is relatively cheaper to buy. It's not as practical as growing chili peppers. "Boss, you're here." Chang Shun saw him and immediately ran over. "Yeah, I came to see how everyone was doing." "They're all doing pretty well." Manager's son was afraid that the chilies in the capital were not enough, so he asked us to plant all our lands with them. "Good. If you can plant more, then plant them all. By the way, did the manor get any corn seeds? Gu Chengrui asked. Yes, but only 10 acres worth. It's pretty good. By the middle of May, you can directly plant them in the chili field. I heard that the yield is relatively high. Remember to pick some big and plump ones to save for next year's seeds. I'll remember it. Go ahead. I'll go to Uncle Yan's place to take a look. We'll meet up again later. All right, then he'll go plant the chili seedlings first. After Chang Shun finished speaking, he turned around and went to the fields. Gu Chengrui went to the breeding area inside. Seeing that Uncle Yin was mixing the feed, he stepped forward to help and greet him. Hello, Uncle Yin. Where's Zhou girl? Why are you back alone? Uncle Yin raised his head. She's pregnant. I'm afraid that she won't be able to handle the trip, so I didn't let her come back. Uncle Yin smiled and nodded. Children are more important. Congratulations on becoming a father. Thank you. Is everything okay here? It's still the same. The space is limited, and the animals we can raise are also limited. However, it's just enough for the restaurant. Thank you for your hard work. Can I get you to slaughter another cow tomorrow for the patriarch? My cousin Gu Chengxi just passed the imperial examination, so we need beef the day after tomorrow. That's great news. Will we send it to the village tomorrow? It's not far. Let's send it there. All right, this old man will remember this. After that, the two of them chatted for a while. After mixing the feed, Gu Chengrui visited the cattle pen and sheep pen before heading to Sinan village. He soon found Feng Chun's house. Brother Chengrui, when did you come back? Gu Zishan, who was helping her child learn to walk, was stunned when she saw him. Yesterday afternoon? How are you doing? Gu Chengrui replied, took out a small silver lock, and handed it to the little fellow. Thanks to you, our village has turned over a new leaf. Gu Zishan thanked him, handed him a stool, and said, Brother Chengrui, have a seat. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.